Izzy Dakota Jones here, and this is the Other Doing Podcast 2021. And my special guest today will be Brian Wadsworth, and Brian is a manager slash agent in the music industry in Vancouver, and had a great deal to do with the history of Vancouver music scene from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So we'll be hanging out and talking to Brian. So hang in there, and we'll be talking to Brian Wadsworth.
Hello.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Hanging in there.
All right.
Yeah. So, hey, let's get started. I'm excited to talk to you because it's been a long time. I go back with you quite a ways, actually, right? Back to the Feldman and Bruce Allen days. So,
Yeah.
and I'd like to know, like, when did you first start, like, in the business? Because, I hear all kinds of stories, like, you were first doing this and then you were doing that. But when did you first start in the industry?
I started managing bands probably 1972
Yeah, that's right.
and started it that way. And then Bruce called me in and hired me for $75 a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was a big job. And then, so to make any sort of money, I had to go to my parents' mushroom farm and shovel horse shit on the weekend, so I could pay my rent.
Yeah.
So that's where the nickname came from.
That's right. That's right. I remember that because everybody talks about that, right?
Yeah.
They're mentioning that all the time. Because, I know you too, and people say, oh, Brian, Brian, I said, oh, Mush. I says, yeah. And then we start talking, right? Yeah. And so, because I remember also I met you also I actually wouldn't start any work with you at all. I remember working with you in Sam's office, right? And the first one was on West 4th there, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's where I remember meeting you and stuff. And how many bands did you manage at that time? Around that time, how many were you doing it?
Well, quite a few. What happened was is that Bruce and Sam and I started a management company. My first band that I really had to take care of was a band called Shama.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then when Sam and I left to form Feldman Associates, Shama came with me, and then the Headpins came along.
Yep.
Which was kind of both of ours, Sam and I together.
Right.
And but no, the Rock and Garden band, Bowser Moon. Oh God, I had lots of them.
You did, yeah. And later on, Casey became a manager and booking agent too, right?
Yeah, everything I did, Casey did years later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people would laugh at me and say, does Casey pay you a royalty? I go, no. He said, well, he should. He copied everything you did.
Well, yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, he did. It was funny because when I worked with him one time, I was looking at the song list of Bowser Moon, and I was looking at the song list of Simon Chaos.
Yeah.
And they were both the same. And then I looked at the picture, Brian, and everybody was standing in the same spot.
Yeah. Oh.
I looked at Casey. I said, "Okay, now I get what you're doing." And he starts laughing. He says, "Yeah, you figured me out." I said, "That's right."
Yeah, I didn't. One thing that I didn't agree with, and that really bothered me, is when the Feldman agents, started doing jam sessions.
Oh, that must have been weird. Yeah, they did do that. That's right too.
Yeah.
Like the Boo Pub used to do that. Remember?
Yeah.
On Saturdays, if I remember correctly, because I remember we had to do those Saturday afternoon jams, and we hated them.
Yeah, because it makes it a long last day of the week.
Yeah, and because I remember that Casey was hosting that one, and then he was also hosting the one in New Westminster at the Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I never thought those ever went over all that well. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really think they did that well. I think it just added one more thing for the bar to have.
Well, yeah, and to me, you try so hard to keep the money up for players and get the bands making real money.
Yes.
And then to have a booking agent host a jam where people play for a beer, to me just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And people got in for free, so the bar was reaping the benefits, and Casey was getting paid.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you know that's so right. And look what's happened right to this day. That's what happens nowadays in bars, right? I mean, when it all comes back, it was. I mean, before it went to hell, it was like that for the longest time. Like there's different bands, Brian, that are playing around town. Still doing covers and originals, and they're trying to make some ends meet. And they're doing jams. And so like they'll do a jam, and then like they have 1,000 people coming up to playing because there's no place to play hardly. And that's the only way the band makes the money, except for when the band goes out to do a normal gig, like they're playing for like less than like we made $100, say $150 a night, playing cover music. Say it was down to now $100 or $80. I caught one band I know, like they're really good band, they like really good players and everything. And I says, how much you making this weekend, guys? Oh, we make $80 each. I says, are you kidding me?
Oh, I know.
I says, what is wrong with you guys, right?
Yeah, it's just, we try so hard to keep the money up so people can actually make a living at it.
And
But then musicians, unfortunately, they cut themselves.
Yes, and you're exactly right. There are bands out there that in the last few years, there's musicians. I'm not going to say the bands, but there's musicians that I know too. Yes, they undercut, right? And then you sit there and you go like, why would you do that? Like why would you undercut? Like it's tough enough. Now you're really thinning the herd, right? And you're really
They used to drive me nuts in the old days when it was Access Entertainment and Bruce Allen were fighting. Excuse me. Back and forth, and Barry Samuels would sell a band for $800 for the week.
Yeah.
And you wanted $1,400 or whatever it was, and it just got to where it was just undercutting. And when the agents like Casey and that started doing jams, and they knew how much the bad guys would play, how much they paid for it, and that's just wrong.
Yeah. I know.
You just couldn't make a living.
No, you couldn't do it. And I mean, I seen that happen so much where the bands were like, like getting cut left, right, and center. I mean, finally, I think back in the days, I was in a band. Like I was telling Darby, I was in a band. I'm sure you booked this at some point. I was in a band called Showbiz Kids, right? And
I remember that.
Yeah. And I replaced Sandra Lakes actually. And so we got to the point where like we thought, okay, when we wanted to record, we just took all our gear. And Mike Filoni was our sound man, right? And so Mike would take all our gear and go and do sound at Gary Taylor's, and put the PA in the lights, and him and his girlfriend would do lights and sound, and we would just rent a small little PA, really cheap thing, and we'd go out and we'd make money playing in with no overhead. We'd go play, like really divey, like the Nelson Place and all those places, and then we'd make enough money to record, like we'd make extra money because we didn't have such overhead, right? And then we'd go back and get all our gear and go back out with Feldman again, right? We changed our name all the time. So when we did the dive bars, we changed our name, went back to playing the bars with you guys. We'd put back our name where we were, right? So it was really interesting, but I mean, that was the only way we could survive sometimes too, right?
Oh you had to be that creative just to make just put money on the table, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting, and then it's interesting too, like how big, and when you were there too. I mean, it was amazing how much we grew, like the industry grew. I was talking to Darby about that yesterday, and it was just amazing around that time period how you guys had, the acts were like just exploding, and the music scene was, it was really, really good. You know what I mean? Like, friggin' hell. I mean, I remember opening up for Jerry Doucette, and then going on tour with Doucette and stuff, and you know, the guys in the band. You got like, you know, man, it was a great band. The first band he had, right? He had
Ben Schindel was in.
yeah, Brent Schindel was in that band.
Uh,
I forget who else. Michael Lafron playing drums, right,
yeah.
and singing, and like everybody was like, the band was really good vocally. Steve Knight playing bass, like all these people were really really good. See, I never forget, because when we did the first show in Nanaimo at Shuffles, it was like we played there, and it was like, you know, okay. I remember Sam telling us, okay, you guys, you got really good originals. I want you to play your originals, but I don't want you to like overkill. I don't want you guys like to kick the shit out of Doucette's band, because they're just getting together, and this is like their first show, and you know, you guys been playing a bit, and you know, we're putting you on the show because, you know, you're a good band. You'll be a good warm up act, and so, you know, we go to the sound check, Brian, and it's like fuck, they're singing like birds, right? You know,
Yeah.
we're looking at each other going like, I don't think we're gonna blow these guys out of the water.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, but it was amazing though, all those bands, right? I mean, like, how did that happen? Like I know the scene started like when you said 72. I mean, I remember bands like Seeds of Time, right, and Spring and all that. Did Bruce and you guys like start those bands off? A lot of those bands were started off in high schools and stuff, in halls. Right?
Yeah, they were like they were high school bands, and guys were only like 16 that were playing in them.
Okay, I didn't know that. Right. Okay.
Yeah, very young guys. I mean, it was not until the bars, when the drinking went down to 19, which then everything exploded, of course.
Yeah.
Then when the clubs came, it was a good time. They would go, and they knew what the songs were, and you know, all the bands are kind of sounding the same, but you know, Sam and Bruce and I had a little pact where we wanted to see if we could get the bands to the next level. That was our thing, you know, like, let's see if we can move these guys, and guys that were good players, like Keith Scott or something, you know,
Yes.
was a good player, and
he was, yeah, because when,
it's like,
yeah,
you know, there you go.
yeah, because
Good on you. Like, we didn't go to Toronto and look for somebody. You just go in your own backyard.
yeah,
And then Shaw Salzberg, he took over the agency when I went into management, and he changed it all. We're like, let's all just make money off these guys.
yeah, yeah. I remember that. I remember when because you guys, that's cool that you said that, because that's really defining, right? Because I remember when you guys were putting those people together, like Bryan Adams with Keith, because I remember Keith was in Zingo, right?
Yeah.
And Zingo was a good band. That was another band.
Another good band. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with those guys in my neighborhood, and you know, Skinner and all those guys, like Dave Skinner and Frank Dato, like they were a great little band. Like I'd go to bars just to watch them and hang out, and and they were. And then you had like those guys. Yeah, of course, Bowser Moon. You had Trooper, which was Applejack. You know, and that was interesting too, how that changed. Yeah, I really. And then I never thought about that before. Yeah, when Salzburg took over, yeah, that you did notice a change in more of a direction of let's just make money off the bars and the cover bands, right?
Yeah, and that was just went against the reason that I got in the business. So I went, fuck, this is stupid.
Yeah, but you went off on your own too, right? Because I worked with you in a band called Wild Child, which became Wild Child. I was there before Wild Child. Actually, was Wild Child with the girl. I left before that, right? But you had that going. So when you were working there, you were managing Darby and I guess a few other acts, right? At that time, you still kept going, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I made a choice of. Well, I think I was about 28 years old or 29 or something. I went, before I get locked into mortgages and babies and stuff, like I'm still young enough to go out and do something.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'm going to try this on my own, just to say that I've done it.
Yeah.
You know, and just to see if I can do it, you know, challenge myself.
Yes.
And, it worked out good. It worked out fine. I'm
Yeah,
glad it went
yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah. And I remember sitting, sitting in the office with you, and like, you'd be on the phone talking to Sam and Bruce, and still making things shake, right? Happening for your bands, right? And it was good to see because, like you said, back in the earlier days, when you're scrapping with like Axis Entertainment or Marie Heatherman, remember Marie, right?
Oh, right,
Yeah,
right. I
yeah.
forgot about her, right?
Oh yeah, somebody's mentioned her the other day to me. Like Marie came. I never forget it. Marie came and saw us play somewhere. It was now, which would be it was Jack's Hanging Tree. Remember down Granville, but it was
Yeah.
before Jack's. I mean now it's the Roxy. So anyways, we played at Jack's for 2 weeks straight, right? So we're playing 2 weeks in a row. And Marie comes in and she's trying to steal us and 500 other bands, right?
Yeah. I know.
And she's like, she's cutthroat, and she's trying to fight with Sam and Bruce, and then and I'm sitting there watching her. I'm talking to her, and she's like scrapping over the phone with them, and then I'm going like, you're not going to win this battle. Like this is,
No, you're not going to win that one, Murray.
you
No.
know. Then she'd work for Bob Siegel, and try to and take all his files. Like,
Oh, shit. Oh, God.
I saw that.
The first band I managed had Bob Siegel and Ken Dudley in it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
That was the first band I managed. That was, oh, God. Yeah.
Yes, and well, it's funny, Bob was a funny guy. I played once for him in a band that we were just getting going, and we were going to work with him for a bit and tighten up, and then come to you guys. And we played we were the last band to play the Windmill on Granville.
Oh, Windmill, right?
Yeah, so we played the Windmill, and I never forget. Bob called me up and he says, "Okay, he's closing, and he's going to be moving to Calgary and opening a bar in Calgary. So make sure you get paid in full." And he said, "Because that night, don't screw around." And I said, "Okay, So I go there, and Brian, he had two Dobermans in his office, and chained to the fucking desk, Brian, chained to the desk.
Wow.
And I was freaked out, walking up, going like,
Oh, yeah.
these dogs are going nuts. And I says, "Can I get paid?" He goes, "I'm going to pay you half, and I don't have the other half until Monday morning. You have to come Monday morning." And I'm thinking, oh, shit. I'm going to have to get up on the phone and phone Bob. So Bob was, he gave me his home phone number. He says, "Joe, call me at home." So I called him, and I says, "Bob, I only got half, right?" I said, "I paid the guys, and I got the other half. I got to get the other half because you're commissioned too, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, don't." He says, "Okay, make sure you show up in the morning." He said 10 o'clock. I'll check with him. So he said 10 o'clock. So I went down there at 10. He was there, and he sold the beer fridge. And as he sold the beer fridge, the money went from the guy giving it to him to me.
Oh, perfect.
I think if I was an hour later, Brian, I think I would have got stuffed.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And Bob just went, "Oh, wow, you got the money." I said, "Yes, I did."
Good for you. Fuck.
But
There's a lot of scary days chasing people for money at times.
I bet it was for you guys in the bars too, right?
Yeah. We were lucky we had the good bars. And, we had a hammer. They couldn't get our bands if they fucked around.
Right.
Whereas, the C and D rooms, as we call them,
Yeah.
we didn't care. I mean, if we didn't book them, so
Yes.
it's your own fault.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I know that happened on the road too back in those days too. And I know I heard some horror stories on the road in some bars, right? But I've witnessed some stuff like that too. Even after you left, like through Feldman, there were some really crazy things that went on in a couple bars, right? But where they tried to stiff us for the pay, and we were offered like $5,000, and you get $4,000. Then the band's freaking out, right? So yeah.
I remember one night, New Year's Eve, I was in Squamish.
Right.
Getting money for the Carroll brothers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because the guy was, had this big New Year's gig, and Peter Carroll phoned me and said, "Mush, that there's nobody here. We're going to get stiffed. I can just tell."
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Yeah, okay." And, the owner was telling me, "Oh yeah, everything's great." And I went, "Nah, something's wrong." And So I went out there and basically took furniture. Like fuck, what do you do?
Yeah, yeah, because you have no choice, right? Because
no choice.
yeah, you have no choice. I know it must have been like I said, it was interesting. And then when you were managing bands, like I guess like you managed the head pins and stuff, and so you got more into doing the international stuff too, right? Like setting up the
Yeah.
big tours and stuff. How was that for you? How did you find the change from moving from the bar circuit to that?
Uh, it's all kind of the same.
Okay, yeah, it
You're
is, yeah.
dealing with people, and you're dealing with the same type of people, and also most of the tours are booked by one company across Canada. So
That's right, yeah.
You're not dealing with a whole bunch of different promoters. And at our first Headpin tour, we went out 49 shows in 55 days or something.
Wow.
And that was nuts. But and we were dealing with different promoters. But it was kind of Headpins in Toronto went out, and I went out on that tour. It's like, oh my god, like this sucks.
Wow.
But, traveling around like driving.
Yeah.
In a 9-passenger van, towing your equipment in a trailer.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yikes, oh well. But,
Yeah, especially in the dead of winter, right?
yeah, exactly. But no, it was it was okay if you got a product that people want. Like they'll call you, and most of those people that I dealt with knew me from the Bruce Allen Sam Feldman days, and so I must have done something right because they always took my call, and I managed to get 4 or 5 bands signed on major labels.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it worked, and I was happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, because I think you're a pretty straight shooter, right? I mean, remember back in the Feldman days working with you, you were always straight up about stuff, right? And that's important because some as you know, some of them weren't always straight up, right? About stuff.
No.
Yeah. There's certain people they give you the runaround a bit on stuff, right? And you kind of look at them, right? And kind of shake your head, right? I'm not that stupid. I just caught you lying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. But in the old days when we were up all together and under Bruce Allen Talent, I made a rule that nobody goes home on a Friday until all the bands are booked.
That's a very good idea. Yeah.
So and like if we knew we got to keep these guys working because we promised we would, and you do.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. Or you say to the guy, well, we got Prince George the generator that's open. Do you want to go up there or not?
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah, you keep yourself going. Yeah, I think the only time I turned down a gig once where they had I was in Port Hardy and they wanted us to go to Medicine Hat.
Now that's a trek. That one.
I said I think we're going to take the week off. And I remember saying this to Lenny Goddard. I said to Lenny, I says, I think we'll take the week off, Lenny. And I says, I guarantee something's going to pop up in the Lower Mainland. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. And then guess what? Tuesday he calls me, he says, you were frickin' fucking right. I says, okay. He says, I'm sending you to Chilliwack. I says, okay, Steve Harris out in The Answer out in Chilliwack.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I says, okay, we'll go.
Sure.
Not that far, right? Not as far, anyways. Yeah, unreal. I know those days. It was very interesting times. And what do you think, Brian, with the industry now? Because I know you've talked to Harvey and you've told him what you think, how the industry is, and where do you think it's at?
I think it's actually I would hate to be a band without a record deal.
Yeah.
And even with a record deal, where do you play?
Yeah.
It's not even with the COVID thing. Even if that wasn't there, all you got is fairs and festivals. Like for Darby, because casinos and fairs and festivals.
Yeah.
Not very many club things. A few club things, but and you want to keep the money up. As soon as you play for a certain amount somewhere, then of course Bernie Alvin or something finds out. He tells everybody, "Oh, they play for nothing, peanuts."
Yeah.
So you got to keep your price up, and which is worked for us. I mean, COVID thing didn't happen, we would have had last year was our best, going to be our best year.
Yeah.
Which is, but it's, it's the streaming. You don't make any money. I did a record deal with True North with Darby's solo and a live album, and I said to Jeff, the owner, I said, you can do the streaming, but I do the hard copies.
Right.
And he says, nobody does that. I said, well, I'm going to do it. Because that's the only way we can make any money.
Yep.
We sell them for $20, $25. And, if you sell 1,000 of them, you make some money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're on our second run of most of ours. So we probably sold like $40,000 worth of product.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah.
But, we turned it back into making money.
Yes.
We did the live album with money that we made selling the old CD that we remastered. So
that's a good thing. See how you turned it around, right?
Yeah, but with True North is like they're OG. We don't want to start this as a precedent. And I said, well, it's going to happen because you guys aren't like we own everything, like so.
Yeah.
They're not having to front us any money.
Yes.
So we own it. And so this is the way it's going to be done. And
yeah.
Finally, he said sure. So
yeah, you're right because what's the name? I saw. You're totally right because I saw what's his name a couple of weeks ago on TV on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I saw Irvin Iverson or whatever his name is. I should know his name. Yes, and he said everybody. New act, old act, middle of the road act. He says, keep everything yourself.
Yeah.
He says you've got to keep the power. He says that's what this is all about: having the power, having your stuff yourself, and if it's good enough, people will come.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, I right away I went, and then he was talking about. Not like streaming like with the music, but actually streaming the bands live, which I've done a lot with my projects lately. And we're like we go to some guys who got a studio. I was telling Darby a while back about this guy's got this beautiful, well not beautiful, it's a studio and it's like a jam shack sort of thing, right? But he puts bands on for free. It's great PA system and lights, and he internets and streams the band playing live. And Brian, it's like we get Harvey and we get like 1,000 people, and you play a bar, we don't get that,
right, yeah,
and you're not only getting people from our neck of the woods, you're getting people from Australia, Germany, and they're all commenting too, right? So
new fans, that's the way to go, definitely.
Because then you can get them to go to your site and you, like you said, sell the hard copies, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to go because I just don't see the bars, or being able to do that anymore. I mean, even some big concerts I find don't do that well. I went to see a band that I really like, a modern band called Ghost, and they're really theatrical. They're from Sweden, and they're a good rock band. And the guy's got a great voice, Brian, really good voice. And you know what? I mean, they won a couple Grammys and everything. And Brian, the Coliseum was like half full.
Yeah.
I just went, I was disappointed. The band was hot. The band was on fire. And I when the lights come up, I was disheartened. I was kind of like going, oh, shit. Like, this is a really good band. What the hell is wrong with people, right?
Well, it's the problem is getting airplay.
Yes.
Like, what do? I don't listen to the radio in my car.
Right.
I listen to podcasts of things that interest me, or bands will send me some stuff and I'll listen to that.
Right.
But where the new acts break out of? Like, how do the radio stations don't play it. It's all classic rock.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a few that will play, like the Sea Fox, and there's the one up in the Okanagan here, Power 104.
Yeah.
They'll play stuff. But, other than that, they just go with stuff that's old. So,
yeah.
how do you get people? And you got to work the internet. You got to work social media to get things going.
You do,
And,
yeah.
I mean, you get 3,000 people saying, "Yeah, we're going to show up to your concert," and only 50 walk in the door.
I know it's yes, yeah, and that's why I've been about the streaming live, playing live. I just saying I noticed a big difference. I'm going. I said to the guys in the band and everybody in the band, I says, "This is crazy. I mean, we never get 1,000 people watching us, like in a bar. Even when we play in L.A. or somewhere, we play the whiskey, we might get like half the whiskey full, but we never get this, right? And I'm going like this. There's something to this, right? This has got to. There's got to be something there with that, right? I says that seems to be the way everybody's going because I think you're right. I think people be in front of their computer before they'll go out and have a drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
And you don't want to go out because of the impaired driving and all the other things and all the nut bars that are out there these days.
yes, that's true. It's
I
true.
mean, boy, we've been up in Vernon here for 20 years or so, and I drove down by, I showed one of my sons where I used to work in Gastown.
Yeah.
And fuck, you go down Hastings Street, you see tents and
I know it's bad.
like who in the hell would want to go down there at night?
Yeah, I haven't. I live in East. I live by the P&E, Brian, and I haven't gone towards downtown. I think the last time I was there was when I played the Roxy. Harvey and I will play the Roxy every now and then, get the band on that stage and rehearse and kind of go through the motions of getting the new songs tight, and that's it. And then we get up and we leave. And my guitar player, one of my guitar players, one time, parked his car in the parking lot downtown, got it trashed.
oh, fuck.
You just sit, and then I felt really bad for him. Like he's a young guy, and a young player, nice car, and I just said, I says, I feel really sorry. He says, don't worry, the insurance will take care of it, He says, I'm okay with that. He says, but like, I'm never parking in this spot again. I says,
no, let's take that off my list.
I just went, wow. But you're right. It's a disaster down, especially around where you were before in Gastown. It's just,
yeah, it was just horrible. And so if your downtown area is like that, why would you go out? Even on Granville Street, it's scary.
Yes, it's touch and go. You have to kind of watch your back, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's gangs now. Like, it's just different. It's not safe. So going in front of your computer and paying $5 to see your favorite band, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the way things are going to go. I think you're right because the downtown cores are not the same like they used to be, and it's like you said, you're not safe. I mean, when I go down there, I mean, I tend to, if I ever going down there, watch my back. And I'm careful what's going on around me because you just don't know what's going to happen, right? You just, and I mean, I've gone to shows at the Commodore, over the years just to see some good acts, and even in the Commodore, you're kind of watching your back inside the Commodore because you're kind of going like, anything could happen here at any given moment around here, right? It's just not the same. You're definitely right about that. Well, the city's changed, right? I mean, even Brian, by the railway, the railway club, the alleys are just, people are sleeping in the alleys, and there's, and there's rats, and I mean, it's right out of a really bad movie. You know what I mean?
It is, and we're getting too old to go out and try to have to take care of yourself. And guys, I was up in Vernon here. I managed some buildings, and I go there at night sometime to look at a building, and it's like, oh my God, there's a bank machine in one of this bank building I take care of, and people are sleeping in where the bank machine is.
Oh yeah. They do that in Vancouver too, just down the street here. They'll sleep inside there to keep warm. I mean,
and the cops won't even come. They
No.
won't even. You call them and say, "There's a guy you saw." Well, that's too bad. Just tell them to leave.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
It's insane, isn't it? I see people like that, and I don't know what, I feel sorry for the people, in the sense that they're trying to find some place to stay warm, and they whatever problems they have, I'm sympathetic to it, but like you just go like, this is just out of whack, right?
Oh yeah,
It's just
and they're on. It's not like the old days when they're just drunks. I mean, they're on some drugs that you don't even want to know about.
yeah. Well, I remember talking about in the old days. I remember Brian, like there used to be a bar we played to another bar we played at. We would do like a little house gig with showbiz kids, and it was called Rococo's, and it was on around Main and Hastings, and it was 10 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning we'd play, right? It was like an after hours bar, right?
Right.
And we'd play there, and so when I got there at 10 at night, the police back in those days, Brian, would have a paddy wagon and on horseback, and they'd march up the street with a bullhorn telling everybody to get off the streets.
Wow.
Like clearing the street. And if you didn't clear the street, if you were like, drunk and falling down, they throw you into the paddy wagon, right? And throw you in jail. And so by the time they left, the streets were cleared, But you don't do that stuff anymore, right?
No, fuck no. Oh, Jesus.
So I don't know if that was overkill, but for back then, but that's the way they kind of kept the city kind of in check, right?
Yeah. Certain things you have to do, that's for sure. But yikes.
Well, so yeah, I guess like you said, now that's a good idea, like you're saying about the industry, like you're keeping your own stuff, and you're in control of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And like with Darby now, I do the booking as well as the management end, because you might as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to do it, but what the hell?
Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's not much as far as agencies go. Is it just because Sam retired? So what happened when he retired? Did he sell the agency to somebody?
Yeah. And it's run out of Toronto.
Right.
And like Sam told me, he said we were golfing last year, and he said, Vancouver is dead agency-wise. There's nobody out here.
Yeah.
Because I used to have people in the office that didn't do anything, and my Toronto office has 30 people working there, and we have 5, and it could keep busy.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he sold it to his guys in Toronto. So
that's what's happening there. So there's really nothing. I guess the Toronto office, just if they book anything, I guess whoever's out here does it, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of like independent guys, running around booking whatever they can, right?
Oh, yeah, and it has changed. In the old days, you kind of needed an office.
Yeah.
But now, you don't. I mean, I booked one gig for Darby, and it was all done through emails and texts. I never even spoke to the guy, and I booked a 3-day tour in Ontario.
Wow.
And did it all through, and when the thing was finally done, booked, signed, deposits in, he called me and said, I just wanted to hear your voice. and I didn't realize that we had not spoken.
Wow.
And I went, oh, God, okay. He said, yeah, just,
Isn't that interesting, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you can do it all. I mean, on your computer, you can do the contracts.
Yes.
And, you don't need somebody with typing skills. You just need, templates, so away you go.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So
Not that hard.
No, things are a lot easier in that aspect, but yeah, it is a different, like you said, it's a different thing, and like I guess like you're saying too, the festivals seem to be still a draw now, right? I mean, they seem to be the thing that's a lot of special events sort of thing is the only thing. I remember talking once to Mike Filoni, like 10, 20 years ago, and he was working, I think, with Sam on that touring company he had, right?
Yeah.
And Mike was telling me, he says, things are going to change. And I said, what do you mean? He says, oh, there's going to be huge changes. He says, big acts are going to still survive, whether the Rolling Stones or the Eagles or whoever, right? He says they'll still all survive and they'll play the big venues. But he says there'll be there'll be the middle acts, playing the Commodore and that. And he says, and anything smaller than that, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah. They're right.
And I don't know how he figured. He said it's just how he says we're sort of Sam and I and all of us are looking at it. He says we can see where where it's going, right? The projection of it. And it was interesting. I found that interesting because that was like 10, 15, 20 years ago. So they weren't, he wasn't far off, right?
Oh no, he was dead on. You could see it coming. Like people are, as soon as they changed the laws, the drunk driving laws and stuff, it just cut the clubs in half pretty well.
And I think, don't you think, Brian, too? I said to people, I thought when MTV came in, like videos and stuff, Much Music and all that sort of came in. I thought that hurt too it started to, not a lot, but it started to dig in to the profits of a live show.
It did. To me, it wasn't so bad because you got to see the band play.
Yes.
And it could be something that you'd want to see live.
Right.
But then when the videos got way out of control, it wasn't a band playing, it's these little plays they're putting on.
Yes.
I didn't go for that too much. I'd rather see a band playing live and getting excited that way.
Yeah, see the performance. Yeah.
Yeah, rather than having a guitar player acting.
Yeah.
Who, fuck, give me a break.
Yeah, they're doing that more now in video. So, because I got a video channel called Loud, and I watch that sometimes. And the bands are going back to performances. So that's interesting. Like they're not doing all the big acting and stuff in it, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah. Well, like Daryl's place, that kind of stuff. I love that.
That's great.
To me, that's music, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Daryl's great, and Hall & Oates are great too. I mean, they're great.
Yeah.
I saw them at the P&E a couple of times in the last couple of years. They still got it.
Yeah.
And then who else did I see back then a couple of years ago too? I saw Styx, and they were amazing with Gowan.
Right. Yeah, I've heard they're real good. I haven't seen them.
It was amazing, Brian. You would have went, wow. I mean, I was really impressed. They were so tight and so together. The music was all there. The place was packed. It was a really good show. And them and the Doobie Brothers. The Doobie Brothers were pretty hot too.
Yeah, they would be.
Yeah. There's some acts you see that still got, like I was saying to Darb. Like last time I watched Darby was when you guys were doing that warm up at the Fairview. And I told her, I said, nothing's changed, Darby. I mean, I stood there watching you, and it's like, you still sound like Darby, It's
well, yeah,
and it takes you back.
People our age at some point, it's going to be over. Bands or guys are dying all over the place, but having an audience like that's the thing that's going to change. Like who's going to go to shows when we're all 90?
Yeah.
So it's going to be watching on your computer, so figure out how to do it.
Yes, yeah. That's great. Well, Brian, I'm going to let you go. It was lovely talking to you, man.
Hey, no problem.
And I hope to talk to you guys again soon. Hey, have a good, safe Christmas, Brian, and you and Darb and the family, okay? And we'll talk again soon. I'll tell Harvey I said hello to you.
Okay, please do that.
Okay. Have a good night, Brian.
Yeah.
Bye now. Well, that was Brian Wadsworth, and what a nice guy. Fun to talk to, just like Darby. And hang in there. Darby will be coming back out, and Brian and them will have the band going and rocking again. And when they do get back out, check them out, because it's a great thing to watch. Great rock and roll. And Brian knows. He played a big part in the Vancouver music scene in the beginning. Yeah, there's hats off to Brian and Darby. Thank you very much. This is Izzy Dakota Jones with the Otter Doing Podcast 2021. Take care.